Offering his plan to halt the flood of illegal immigrants coming across our southern border right here. Listen.
I would build a great wall, and nobody builds walls better than me, believe me. And I'll build them very inexpensively. I will build a great wall on our southern border, and I will have Mexico pay for that wall. Mark my words.
Well, what about that now? The former Texas Governor Rick Perry is another candidate running for the White House who might know a thing or two about border security. And the governor's with me from Houston, Texas today. Thank you for coming back to America's Newsroom. What do you think about that idea? Get Mexico to pay for a wall?
You're correct. I do know a little bit about border security, having been the governor of Texas for the last 14 years. And last summer, we saw that great surge of individuals on the border. There's actually three things that you do to secure the border. Obviously, personnel and having the personnel in the right places, and strategic fencing to slow down, to be a real detriment to crossings. But the third thing that's really missing, and the thing that I will suggest that the federal government has not addressed at all, and that's aviation assets flying from Tijuana to El Paso to Brownsville, that 1,800-plus mile border. With aviation assets, looking down 24/7, identifying where activities are occurring, and then quick response teams to go address those activities. That's the way you secure the border. I'll suggest that what Mr. Trump was talking about makes for some pretty good TV maybe, but the reality is if you want to secure the border, we know how to do it. When we surged our National Guard last summer in those areas where we were having real challenges, we saw a 74% decrease in apprehensions. And I think Americans don't want rhetoric, they want action.
That's pretty remarkable. Just take on the issue about the wall, though, and get Mexico to pay for it. Is he right on that or not?
I'll let him run on that. I'm going to run on actual experience of dealing with this, and we've been successful with it, and I think we can take that experience to Washington, D.C. That's what Americans are looking for. They're not looking for rhetoric. They're looking for somebody who's actually been in the field of battle, if you will, who's performed, who's got results. And whether it's job creation or whether it's dealing with the border, we've got real results that back up our action.
Just one more point on Donald Trump. He's saying that Mexico's ripping America off. Is that the case?
Well, again, I think you have to have diplomatic relationships with a lot of different countries. Mexico happens to be the #1 trading partner with the state of Texas. So, you know, we may disagree on a number of things. But again, I'm not going to get distracted about what's important to the people of this country and job creation and keeping this country safe. And we know how to do both of those things.
Yeah. Do you welcome his candidacy?
Oh, sure. Listen, the field's going to be broad and give people a lot of choices. But again, Bill, I think Americans are going to look at this after what will have been 8 years of an inexperienced young United States senator who's gotten this country, I think, in a pickle economically and certainly in a foreign policy standpoint. That Americans want to look for someone who has job creation, real job creation results during a period of time, I might add, when the greatest recession that we've had since the Great Depression, and Texas still continued to create jobs at an unprecedented rate. That's what people want to look for. And having worn the uniform of the country, knowing how to deal with the challenges on the foreign policy front is really going to be important.
Listen, you pivot well on these topics, and I know jobs will be your focus. You know, too, that Jeb Bush will put a focus on that as well. This is what he said just 24 hours ago about you and about another governor, too, in Texas.
If you ever see my good friend Rick Perry, or actually even my brother, George W., tell him that we created more jobs than Texas during those 8 years.
I'm sure that comment lingered its way down to Texas. What do you think of that?
You know what? Competition is a good thing. I'm a big believer in the 10th Amendment that Washington needs to devolve this power back to the states and let the states compete. I mean, that's the beauty of what our founding fathers talked about. And, you know, I think it's important to take a look at people's records. When you've got blue skies and the wind behind your back, as the early 2000s, the late 90s were in Florida, you know, it was pretty easy to create jobs down there. But the real I think the real challenge and the real record is look at who created jobs when the Great Recession of 2008 forward was occurring, and Texas created 1.5 million jobs from the end of 07 through 2014, while the rest of the country lost 400,000 jobs. Now, I'll share with you, Bill, that I think that that's what Americans want to look for. Tell me who can perform when things are rough and tough, because that's what we face in this country today, and that's what we face in the world. It's a rough and tough world out there, and we need somebody who's got the results of putting a job creation plan together, being able to send the message to our allies that we're going to be there with you, and our adversaries, if you cross that red line, you're going to pay a real price for it.
Speaking of rough and tough, you all appear to respect each other, for the most part, I would say. You know, listening to you talk and so many others, is this campaign itself during the primary season, is it going to be rough and tough?
Well,
what do you think of that?
I respect those individuals who have stepped into the arena that love this country, that want to serve. I think we can have a thoughtful conversation, a civil conversation. I think there's a real comparisons to be made. I'm proud of not only my job creation record, my time of wearing the uniform of this country. I think that's what Americans are going to look for, experiences that really paint a worldview that not only can create an economic climate in this state, protect people's values and freedoms in this country, and also project into the world that America is a unique and an exceptional place, and America does have a powerful role to play in the world, and having a strong military and a strong diplomatic ability is what people are going to be looking for. I think I can bring that full package to the American people.
Just one more point on the field and how you'll approach this in terms of strategy. So you'll tell Jeb Bush that you did it during a recession in terms of creating jobs.
Indeed.
And you'll tell your colleague Ted Cruz from Texas that he was in the Senate and you were in an executive position in Texas as a governor, and that makes you more fit in your second run for the White House. So then, when you're on this debate,
I couldn't have said it any better, Bill.
When you're on this debate stage, I don't know if the word is nasty, but how nasty could it get? Or will there be a level of civility that you all will try to maintain? Just listening to all you talk about each other, it appears it's the latter. Will it be, or will it stay that way?
Well, I can't speak for anyone else. I can speak for myself. And I will work very diligently to be very civil, but also pointing out the comparisons and the results, because I think that's important for the American people. I think Americans want to see a tough, focused, disciplined leader in this country. And we certainly haven't had that for the last 6.5 years.
Rick Perry, thank you for your time. The three-term governor from Texas.
Thank you,
By
Bill.
the way, how are people hanging in there with Tropical Storm Bill after weeks and weeks of rain prior to that, sir? Governor?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How are people in Texas doing with the weather moving through there?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you had left me there. They're doing fine. Listen, the weather is always a two-edged sword here. It's we needed the rain. We also have the challenges that come when you have too much rain in one place. But Texans are a resilient group. We've gone through hurricane after flood, after tornadoes. I mean, we have a lot of natural disasters in this part of the world. We got one of the great teams put together over the last decade. We really created one of the finest emergency management teams in America. They respond working with our local law enforcement, our local emergency management folks. So I feel comfortable that we will do everything that we can to make sure that our citizens are safe and that they deal with this in a good way. The other side of that is we needed the rain, and now we're out of a drought situation. And so hopefully as we go into this hurricane season, that we can get a pass from any big storms that affect the people.
Listen, we're thinking about all our friends in Texas, sir, and thank you for your time today. Rick Perry out of Houston today.
You're welcome.
We'll speak again. Thank you. Martha.
Coming up, a huge